Thank you very much, Chris, for being here with us, celebrating the 36th anniversary of the Australian Chinese Daily. I wouldn't repeat what I was saying before, no point. It's alright, but we are very happy and very honoured to have you representing the Labour Party and New South Wales opposition leader here itself. It's a great honour. So please, if you could, share with us the speech.
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. It's wonderful to see you all. I genuinely appreciate the opportunity to address this forum, and thank you so much, Keith, for the opportunity to answer your questions and speak to the community here in Ryde, and also about the future of Sydney and New South Wales. New South Wales is Australia's largest state, its biggest economy. We can do so much with what we have right here in this state, and it's crucial and important to note the role of the newspaper, the Australian Chinese Daily, has played over the last 36 years. It's an august and important birthday, and I can't wait to be here for the 40th anniversary in 4 short years. I'll tell you why it's so important, because for the last 36 years, this newspaper has provided an insight into both international news and local news to the Australian Chinese community. It's done it with independence, it's done it with rigour and vigour. It's asked tough questions of political leaders, both internationally and right here in Australia. And I think under Keith's leadership, the journalists at this publication have thought about the unique multicultural country that we have here and the importance of our economy, our education system, and what's possible for the future of this great state and this great country. I'm here tonight with 3 wonderful candidates. Ash for the seat of Oatley, Lyndall for the seat of Ryde, and the member for Strathfield, Jason Lee, elected in a by-election not long ago, and a wonderful parliamentary colleague of ours. It's wonderful to be here with the 3 of you. Thank you. Of course, I'd like to acknowledge Keith Tan and a very good friend of mine, the councillor on Georges River Council, Ben Wang, who's here with us this evening as well. It's wonderful to see you there. I want to get to questions because I know that Keith's got questions, and at the end of the day, he's a journalist and he wants answers. But if you'll forgive me for a moment, I did want to speak about a few things. Firstly, I'm concerned about rising incidents of racism and violence in the community, particularly directed to the Australian Chinese community. It's vitally important that we stand up to this, that there's a law enforcement response to incidents of violent behaviour against those of a Chinese Australian background. I believe the New South Wales government has a strong role in defending harmony and cohesion in our community, and to advocate against hatred, bigotry and violence. I was upset to hear about recent events a few kilometres from here at Top Ryde. Many of you would have seen the video. A young man of Asian descent subject to foul language and racist insults. He was doing nothing more than his job. This boy was going to work cleaning tables at a local cafe. It prompted our candidate for Ryde, Lyndall Howson, to come to me and say we need to do better. And I believe we do need to do better. During the pandemic, I hosted a meeting of the Kogarah Chinese community to discuss the growing number of incidents directed at them in the St George community. Small business people in Hurstville subject to racist abuse. My constituents told me they were called names and in the most extreme cases threatened as they walked down the street. Now this is completely unacceptable, and it's important to call out racism and racist incidents wherever they occur, because if the leadership of New South Wales doesn't call out that kind of racism, it becomes entrenched. You see greater incidents of it. So in a bipartisan way, as leader of the New South Wales Labor Party, let me say it will never be acceptable in New South Wales. There will be a law enforcement response in every single incident, and we will create the Premier's Prevention Panel on Racism and Extremism to deal with the growing concerns in multicultural communities. The panel will include senior representatives from New South Wales agencies as well as multicultural and religious leaders to talk about the incidents of hatred and bigotry and discrimination in New South Wales. I believe it will make an impact, and I've seen firsthand in my own community, in Lyndall's, in Ash's and in Jason's, what happens when you don't clamp down hard on racist and abusive behaviour. It hurts our community, it's patently unfair, and it can't be tolerated. I want to speak about two other incidents before I hand over to Keith. The first one is education. Now, we believe in New South Wales Labor that education is the great lever that allows opportunity for people, no matter what your parents did for a living, no matter where you've come from, any part of the world. Our education system gives you opportunities. But I have to say, outcomes when it comes to education have been declining. We used to be ranked third in the world when it came to science. That number's dropped all the way to 23rd. We were ranked 6th in the world when it comes to reading. Again, we've dropped all the way down to 23rd in New South Wales. When it comes to mathematics, we're in the top 10 at number 9. We've tumbled all the way to 33rd across OECD countries. Now, we have to face a reality that we're in a competition, not just against other states in Australia, but other countries around the world. And the most important investment we can make in the future of this great country is in our education system, both public and non-government. I am determined to turn around those results, to invest in young people, to make sure that they know that they've got opportunities when they graduate from school. And the single best way we can do that is to invest in our teachers. Now, I bet everybody in this room, every single one of you, can point to 2 or 3 teachers that literally changed your life. Either they made you understand complicated science or mathematic problems, gave you an understanding of history or Shakespeare, or opened you up to a career and a direction in your life that you didn't know that you were capable of. And we cannot replace teachers with apps or computers or websites. It's that inspiration that you feel at the front of a classroom when a wonderful teacher sparks something in the next generation of Australians. So there's a few things we'll do. We'll convert 10,000 temporary and casual teachers to permanent contracts, so they stay in our education system. We'll make sure that we're investing in teachers by taking away 5 hours worth of bureaucracy and pen pushing and get them out of their offices and in front of the children in their classrooms. And we'll make a decision, and I think this is an important one, about banning mobile phones in New South Wales public schools. Because at the end of the day, I know many adults that find it difficult to concentrate when the mobile phone is in front of them, but we're expecting children to focus on classwork when they've got apps and social media and text message. We've got to give our kids the best chance. People ask me, why do I want to be Premier of New South Wales? And I tell them that my dad was a public school teacher for 40 years. He believed in education. He thought it was the great way of ensuring that you could achieve your full potential. And I want to make sure that if I'm elected Premier with my team on the 25th of March, that I'm the Education Premier of New South Wales. Invest in it, watch it grow, and see the positive benefits for our economy and the next generation of young Australians. Thanks so much.
Thank you. You've actually answered 2 of my questions here. Maybe I should start with something harder so that I'll put you at your spot. Chinatown. Maybe I should start with the same thing, which is Chinatown in itself. It's a staple, it's a symbol of our Chinese community and our culture. But it's in such a disarray right now. Businesses are going down, business owners, property owners, landowners in itself are definitely facing problems, and as well as there's just not enough traffic there. What would you do to revive Chinatown and businesses around? It's not just Chinatown, I should say, about the city.
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, and it can be answered in a couple of ways. Firstly, we need to appreciate that we want Sydney to be an international city, like New York and London and Shanghai, and that can only happen if you approach planning issues with an international city perspective. And that does mean, in part, looking at where people live. Now, I have to tell you that in New South Wales, the suburbs of Blacktown have to grow by an additional 125,000 people in the next 20 years. The Hills district, just above that has to grow under the current government by 110,000. If you go down into Camden, 80,000, Liverpool, 85,000, Parramatta, the swamp. Parramatta by 125,000 people. Now the city, the CBD, has to grow by just 35,000 people over the same period of time. And if you look at London and if you look at New York, then they do have more urban consolidation closer to where the thriving economy is and where there are jobs. So we're going to charge the Greater Sydney Commission with looking at where population goes in Sydney, because we think it's important that it go where the transport hubs are. Because you can't have a city where you add another street to the Western Fringe every other week. Major cities like Barcelona and New York and London don't work like that, and Sydney can't work like that either. Second point I want to make, Keith, and I know you want me to keep it short, but there's just too much planning rigmarole for people to go through in New South Wales. Someone sent me this last week. This is some of the labyrinth that you have to traverse if you want a building certified or agree to in Sydney. You have to go through Minister Stokes, Minister Roberts, the Department of Planning, the Cities Commission, the Greater Sydney Commission, the Western Parkland City Authority, the State Regional Planning Panel, the Local Planning Panel, the Independent Planning Commission, local councils, and the Land and Environment Court. It's too much. And if we want private capital to invest in Sydney in particular and not move to Brisbane or Adelaide or worse, go offshore, then we have to make sure that it's easy to get quick yeses or quick nos, so that investment can come into Sydney and we can drive the economy for the next 10 years.
Thank you, because this really more to that fact. But since you answered again half of it, my other question is that will understanding this might be a council issue, but will DA approvals be more transparent? And the thing is, it's very well known that the Chinese Asian communities love to put out wealth in real estate. So therefore, around those areas that you're talking right now are definitely abuse, right? So, and would that change? Do you think that you could help if that change whereby city fringes, where all the transportations are already developed, that the landowners there to do more?
Well, we've been really transparent about it, and it's important to note in New South Wales at the moment, apartment approvals are at their lowest point since 2014. Now, there's been a lot of talk about housing affordability. There's a rental crisis in New South Wales. We've seen double-digit increases in rents across the Sydney CBD. Now, anyone will tell you, an economist or a business person or someone that works in this area, that you have to deal with that with supply. And so we've decided to make a tough decision to make sure that the Greater Cities Commission looks at density in Sydney and where we can make sure that there are increases in the urban population closer to where jobs are and where there are employment opportunities. If we don't do that, two things will happen. The housing affordability crisis in Sydney will get worse, but secondly, where will you get skilled labour? If we've got young people in Sydney who are saying at the moment, I can't live and work in Sydney anymore, it's just too expensive, and they move to Brisbane or Melbourne, it hurts our economy. And I need to be in a situation where the next generation of Australians that live in this great city say to themselves, we can live and we can work in Sydney, and we've got a government that's going to back them into it.
Thank you. Again, thank you for leading it in, because my next question I have on my paper, which is not the same as yours, but it seems to be, is employment. Right? Really, it's not the same. It's mine. So, with regards to employment, right? We all know that these are entrepreneurs, business owners here that we have. Labor shortage is definitely a big concern. One thing is that as the students come back, right, they would love to say that, hey, maybe they want to call Australia home, maybe they are now well trained by the business owners here. Are there ways to improve whereby they can sponsor them and then they can stay? Because if not, it's just turn around over turn around.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that, Keith, and I know that the federal government's obviously looking at immigration laws and how they relate to the economy and opportunities for young people. I think it's really important that I say unambiguously that as the leader of the New South Wales Labor Party and as a member for Parliament for Cogra with a big and active and diverse and energetic Asian Australian population, I am unambiguously a supporter of inbound immigration into Australia. I believe the people that have come to this country, we are so lucky to have you if you're a first generation migrant. to start a business, to start a family, to put down roots, to drive our economy and make us richer and more culturally interesting. So thank you for that. And I want to make sure that there's no ambiguity from New South Wales Labor in relation to that. That's how we live our lives, both socially, privately, and in a public professional setting. Secondly, it's really important that we have a skilled up workforce. Now, Keith, you know that Jason and myself spoke to, I think, every single Vice-Chancellor right across the university sector in New South Wales over the last 12 months. And there was one question we asked them every single time. International students are important for our economy. International education is the second biggest export industry in the state behind coal. And we need to make sure that those students are coming back. And you know what every single university said? We've got our international students, they're fine. Unfortunately, they were all online. And we need them back in Australia. So it's fine for the education sector and universities in particular, but there's such a rich and important experience for young people coming to this country, learning their tertiary education here, getting a world-class research university qualification under their belt, and then either staying to start a business and grow the economy, or going back to some other place around the world and saying Australia is a great place to live, it's a wonderful place to trade with, and it's the future of the economy globally. So it's important for us, both in the short term and the long term.
Thank you. One last question here, which is really, really important as within the community itself, is actually health. So from a health perspective, there are quite a few things right now, or that has been happening lately, which is the shortage of nurses and the strikes that have happened. And the other concern that we have is, are there any chance for a culturally appropriate aged care where they actually serve rice and porridge and not jello? So it's actually hard to on that aspect itself, but it's of healthcare with regards to more shortage of nurses and food appropriateness.
Yeah, well look, on the second part of the question first, if we were elected into government on the 25th of March, of course we want to speak to CALD communities about appropriate, food, nourishment, particularly in hospitals, because it's an important part of recovery. And if it's not nutritious and it's not being accepted by the patients that are coming in, it's not going to work. Look, in relation to health, you're absolutely right. I think it's really important to know that we do have a health crisis at the moment. And just last week, 24 hours ago I should say, some new data came out about the performance of our health system. 67,000 people in a 3-month period walked into an emergency department and turned around and left without getting any treatment at all. And that's the second highest ever recorded. There are currently 100,000 people on the elective surgery waiting list. Again, the highest number ever recorded. And unfortunately, there's 4,000 children on that list as well. There are 1 in 10 people that go into an emergency department in New South Wales hospitals will wait longer, wait for this, than 21 hours. 10%. Now, what's happening in our health system at the moment, I'll give you an example of Blacktown Emergency Department. They've lost 35 emergency department nurses in the last 12 months. 35. And they're taking with them decades worth of experience. And Keith, you can't replace this experience. Because an educated, experienced nurse can go into an emergency department and say, you're at risk of a stroke, you may be having a heart attack, that looks like sepsis. They make decisions quickly. Because it's their profession. They care about it. But they're leaving in big numbers. So we've made a decision that we're going to have safe staffing levels. 1 nurse for 3 patients in our emergency departments. It means we have to recruit an additional 1,200 nurses across the state. But frankly, I can't have a situation where the elective surgery waiting list gets worse and worse and worse. And this time next year, you're not waiting 21 hours, you're waiting 24 hours. We have to get better at this. And again, like teachers, there's no replacement for the people that we need to run these essential services. That nurse or that teacher. They're crucial for our health system and public services in this state. So I think we've got a plan that will make a big difference, but it does require a change in government, Keith, and that's what we're going to do.
I know I can't be up, but do give me a minute here. 呢度咧，好多謝，亦都好榮幸地，我哋可以請到之前州長，而家亦都有我哋反對黨領袖喺呢度。喺呢度好開心，亦都知道，亦都好明顯睇得出嘅就係話佢哋好重視，真係好重視我哋畫社。所以喺呢度嘅話，我哋會簡單啲嚟講就係澳洲新報將會繼續持續，會做翻我哋應該做嘅就係做係橋梁，同政府同埋我哋畫社一齊合作。在這裡的話呢，謝謝也看到我們